Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McCusick. We're here for another That One play today, and the one we've got for you today is a cool one. It's the 2008 wild card interception by Ed Reed. There were actually two of them in that game. The one that was run back for a 64-yard touchdown had a little bit of everything in it. And here to talk about it with us is Slava Cooperstein. Slava, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Ken. How are you?
Always great to talk football, and this is a nice respite from some of the Ravens news going on here. It's March 28th. We're in the middle of Lamar madness right now in terms of everything that's going on with the contract negotiations and the trade request and whatnot. But Slava, appreciate you coming on today and talking a little Ed Reed with us. Kind of set this up for us in terms of where the 2008 Ravens were, who they are to you, and what was going on in this rookie year for both Joe Flacco, Ray Rice, and John Harbaugh at the same time.
Yeah, so the 2008 Ravens season is one that I hold very dear. It was just a very memorable season. Had some really classic games. Like you said, it was those big three had their rookie season. For my money, it's the third best Ravens defense ever after 2000 and 2006, whatever order you want to put those two in. It was a great season from the Ravens. They went 11-5, got the wild card. They were swept by the Steelers in three very, very close games, which kind of ratcheted up the rivalry. But there were really memorable games like the game against Dallas and the game against the Eagles, where Ed Reed had probably a more famous Pick-6. But I chose this one because I thought it represented a sort of a changing of what we could come to expect from the Ravens now that they were under John Harbaugh, as opposed to the Billick teams of the past.
Reed, incredible season, one of his very big ones. The 2004, he won the Defensive Player of the Year. 2008, I thought he was robbed, frankly. There were, I guess Harrison won the award, I believe, that year, and certainly had a big year. Polamalu had a fairly big year, but the Ravens defense was extraordinary. It's what really kept them in all the way to the AFC Championship. And frankly, like 2014, as early an arrival as this team was, kind of a team that missed their opportunity as well in 2008 to win the whole thing.
Yeah, I think it was probably a few years before Joe Flacco became an asset in the playoffs. Probably in 2010, he became an asset. But 2008 and 2009, they didn't ask him to do too much, and there were some critical moments where he didn't quite put it all together. But still, it was an exciting first year, and leading up to this, the sort of the Billick years right before this, I kind of viewed the Ravens in retrospect as sort of being the sum of the parts was greater than the whole. Like in particular, you look at the 2003 season, when they were one and done in the playoffs, despite having Defensive Player of the Year Ray Lewis, Offensive Player of the Year Jamal Lewis, and a Defensive Rookie of the Year in Terrell Suggs. All that talent to be one and done, and we don't have to go over the painful 2006 exit.
Right, those are both painful. Obviously, the lack of a franchise quarterback either of those years really hurt. And Anthony Wright was good for them down the stretch, got them into the playoffs after Bowler was kicking around the football in his first half season in the NFL. But in the playoffs, met a good defense and had a lot of difficulty with it. And that 2016, obviously, with McNair at the end of his career was not an ideal quarterback situation. I think a lot of Ravens fans view the acquisition of McNair still very positively because of the 13-3 season, but there wasn't too much of that. That was Steve McNair. It was mostly that Ravens defense and that extraordinary defense it was.
Absolutely. You just sort of saw the wheels fall off in real time of McNair. If he had just managed to hold on, a little bit, like 3 quarters longer, we probably would have been viewing that season differently. But yeah, I mean, going into this game, we were 11-5. We were being hosted by the Dolphins, who had beat in Week 7. They had made it into the playoffs, winning the AFC East that did not have Tom Brady because he was out for the season with an ACL. They were led by, I would say, reasonably competent quarterback play by Chad Pennington. The Dolphins were. And yeah, it was the year of the 3-headed monster and that great defense. And it was a pretty memorable game.
A lot of things about that Dolphins team. I remember, first of all, Wildcat team, and they were really the first to run a lot of it in a season, and did certainly some positive things there, having Ricky Williams and doing what they did there, but also they were one of the historically low turnover teams of all times. They'd only turned it over, I think, 13 times during the regular season.
Yeah, Pennington, I think, had a well-deserved reputation for being a very cerebral quarterback. He didn't make a lot of stupid mistakes, I don't know how much you necessarily put on him in this particular play. I do think it was a mistake on his part, not just his receiver falling over. But yeah, no, he was not somebody who was known for turning the ball over.
It's interesting. This is really the end of Chad Pennington. This game in particular, he was 32 years old. It wouldn't have been hard to see him, go on from this point, get extended and whatnot. He's second in the AP MVP voting that year, but he only played 4 more career games, was 1-3 in those as a starter, finishing up with Miami in 2010. But it would not have been hard to see him, playing on for a while after that.
Yeah, I would have thought that he would have been a pretty good mentor as a backup quarterback to a younger quarterback. And, not a great way to go out if you want to call this his last hurrah. But yeah, just going into the game, in the beginning, you mentioned the Wildcat. Something that I noticed while rewatching this game is the Wildcat and the sort of trick plays that Miami was trying to run were just like very ineffective against that Ravens defense. We kind of had it all figured out. The problem was on offense. We weren't particularly good either. So after the first quarter, we had just exchanged field goals, and our run game was reasonably effective, but we just couldn't get it into the end zone, which led us to about 2 minutes and 52 seconds in the first half, where we come to this play.
So go ahead.
Sorry, you froze for a second. I was just going to set it up on 3rd and 8. It was 3rd and 8 on Miami's 19-yard line. And I believe the Dolphins lined up 3 wide, and so that's the play starts. There's a decent amount of pressure by Jameel McClain, who probably and I have fond memories of Jameel McClain. I remember him picking up some safeties a few times in his Ravens career before he went on to the Giants.
I believe Jameel McClain is still the first ever player to record a safety in his first NFL defensive snap. So he took down Jamarcus Russell in the end zone for a safety on his first NFL snap. So it's really something.
I remember that safety, and I think that might have been this year, the 2008 season. Is that right?
Yes, no, wait a minute. Might have been 2006 in week 2. No, yeah, I'll look. Now I've forgotten.
Either way, fond memories of that player. I thought he was one of those, great middle linebackers that we churned out, seem to do all the time.
You're correct, by the way. It was 2008.
Oh, okay, good. Just pulled that out, pulled that rabbit out of the hat. So there are 3 wide, and Pennington forced to throw a little bit early. Looks like he doesn't quite get to step into the throw as much as he would like, and he's throwing to number 18, Ernest Wilford, who's running up the left sideline, and at this point he's double covered by Samari Rolle and Ed Reed, so maybe not the best candidate to throw the ball to, although it's possible Reed could have not been covering him at the time that he was
duped him.
He was known for that. But either way, the coverage was excellent. So the receiver falls down due to sort of incidental contact with Samari Rolle. They kind of trip each other up, but I don't really think that impacted this play, because by the time, the reason that Rolle and trips him up is because Rolle's already looking for the ball. He knows he's in a good position and sort of boxed out the receiver. And so, Samari Rolle was looking to intercept it, but of course Ed Reed was there, and Ed Reed picks it off, and boy, was that a pretty looking interception. It looked like Reed was the intended receiver.
Mm-hmm. It's very much an over-the-shoulder catch. Reed had a great ability to do that. Obviously, a lot of Reed's career interceptions are waiting on an overthrow or waiting on a tip where he's moving towards the football and back towards the line of scrimmage. This was just the opposite. This was very much looked like a receiver play, and more like one that's when he gets into this position that he may have baited the quarterback into the throw. What I noticed about it was, this is an exceptional case where the Ravens have a lot of pressure at the line of scrimmage. And I didn't really check to see when I watched it again how many they had rushing, but they had a lot of pressure. So they may have had drops and other things, but they still have double coverage on the back end with the perfect bracket you want against this receiver. And it's amazing. But this 2008 Ravens defense really, they knew where they were. In a lot of ways, Rex Ryan, after that season, when he left for New York, of course, he famously went to go pick up Bart Scott at his house at 12:01 a.m. when it was legal to talk to him. And Ray Lewis made the comment that, Harbaugh wasn't the coach of that team. It was Rex Ryan. A lot of people thought he should have gotten his first chance in Baltimore. But I think, thankfully, as it's turned out, that was not the case.
Yeah, I think Steve Bisciotti got that one right.
Yeah.
And I think the sort of the resolve and the preparedness of this 2008 team showed, Steve Bisciotti that he made the right call. I was actually recently listening to your the episode about the Ed Reed interception against the Jets, and it was funny that you mentioned that Reed would sometimes sort of run along the width of the field before sort of going in, and that's exactly what he did here. He ran from the offense's left side of the field to the right side pretty much, going all of 5 yards back towards the opposing end zone before blocks by Fabian Washington and Jim Leonard, another great 2008 story. At around midfield, set up Reed to loop back to the offense's left side of the field. So he almost does sort of this like kind of partial figure eight sort of deal, runs an incredible amount of actual yardage. And as he sort of starts running back to the offense's left side of the field, this convoy of Samari Roll, Ray Lewis, Terrell Suggs, and Haloti Ngata sort of coalesces. And just, pick a defender. Ngata destroys one Miami player. Like a real dick-leader. Bart Scott bumps somebody. Suggs demolishes Chad Pennington, and right at the end, like right at the 2-yard line, Ray makes a little bump, of a Miami player, which leaves Ed Reed clear to make it into the end zone. And, there's the Ravens' first touchdown of the game.
Just incredible fast break offense by the defense. And they knew they had to get in the end zone a lot back in those days. In the years before, even more so, but really all of the Ed Reed years, they wanted to play fast break offense, which is why Reed was so, took so many chances with the football, most of them good. One of his early interceptions, we remember he got the ball knocked out of his hands as he was celebrating a touchdown a little early. But most of the time, Ed Reed, the laterals he did produced positive value, and were definitely things you wanted to see. I know a lot of people thought he was a gambler. Well, of course he's a gambler. You have to gamble some to be a free safety who's effective taking the ball away. We see Marcus Peters today. We understand better, I think, today what it means to gamble at cornerback the way he does. But Reed did a lot of that at safety as well. And occasionally it would get him beat, and he didn't concern himself with that too much. He was like a good closer, and he would very often get the interception. When you think about the points exchange there, Reed's sense of gambling is extraordinary. Without knowing all the math, he's kind of like a Doyle Brunson of gambling there on the field.
He understands not just leverage, but he understands exactly where each one of his teammates is on the field. And he understands basically, simultaneously how to communicate to his players just with his movements, where he's going, who's going to need to set up a block. And, credit to all of the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at least 6 defenders contributed blocks on this play. And for my money, this is as good a transition defense play as you're ever going to see, which is why I'm a big fan of this play among the many career highlights that Ed Reed had because it truly was a team effort.
It's a highlight that I'm actually a little surprised we haven't seen more as the play from Ravens history, but people like yardage returns. So we saw the 104 against Cleveland was the one we saw for a while, or whatever it was. I may have forgotten the yardage. And the 107 against Philadelphia, we've certainly seen a lot, in history, but this one had it all. And the thing you mentioned kind of is how well set up those blocks were. It's as if those defenders knew Reed was coming back to that side of the field. And as the Miami entire offense, and remember, there's 5 offensive linemen on the field, so they're not going to have much of a chance to catch Ed Reed. But as the Miami offense is migrating to that right side of from the offense's perspective, the defense has a lot of players that are hanging out on the offensive left side, just knowing that Reed's going to cut back, and they are ready. And the amount of damage they do on that play is as you mentioned, extraordinary. The Haloti Nada block is a decleater, and the wipeout of Pennington. Pennington should have known what quarterbacks know today, which is just basically let that play happen. Somebody else has got to make the tackle, because that's your chance of getting injured on that play is pretty darn good. And Suggs was not going to take it easy on him. Given the opportunity to take a free shot at the quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. It was and that was the turning point in the game. I think Miami ended up committing 5 turnovers in that game, which is, to your point, more than a third of their entire regular season allotment, which is just a remarkable stat.
Yeah, it's a great play. Slava, thanks so much for coming on and talking about this. It's a great play. Has, I think, a lot of historical significance, both in terms of that particular Ravens team, in terms of how they played defense during the era, and certainly in terms of what we remember about Ed Reed and whatnot. Tell folks where they can talk football with you online.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Slava Cooperstein. That's Lava with an S in front of it, and then it's KUPERSTEIN, and probably see my name in the summary on if you need help spelling that.
All right, outstanding. Slava, thanks for coming on. Other folks out there, if you'd like to be on that one play or have any idea for a short this offseason, I'm always looking for content, always looking for people to talk football with, and I'm sure I'd love to talk to you. DMs are always open on Twitter. I'll get back to you real soon. Slava, thanks again for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Ken.
And we'll talk to you next time on Film Study.
The new Chevy Silverado HD puts you in command. Own strength with its enhanced available Duramax 6.6-liter turbo diesel V8. Own the lake with its available advanced towing technology. And own technology with an available 13.4-inch diagonal touchscreen. The new Chevy Silverado HD. Own work, own play, own life. Learn more at Chevy.com. Find new roads. Chevrolet.